Over the past 5 years, Sadler'S Wells has commissioned and co-produced almost 70 productions. Based in London's Islington, it's one of the world's leading dance houses.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Sky Arts spent 2 weeks at Sadler'S Wells following the rehearsals and work on 6 different projects.
That's it. That's the step.
The range and diversity of work is perhaps the most impressive thing about the company. It switches effortlessly from programmes of challenging esoteric work to boisterous populist musical theatre.
Da-ga, da-ga-da, swing, swing, da-ga, ga-da-ga, swing, swing.
Over the 2 weeks, we took a snapshot of what the company was up to, documenting the transfer of its sellout show Shoes from Sadler'S Wells to the Peacock Theatre, their West End venue. We saw the company of elders rehearse a section from Matthew Bourne's Cinderella and met up with Michael Nunn from the Ballet Boys to see rehearsals of their new venture, The Talent, a section of which was being performed in a Sadler'S Wells season called Sampled.
This, when you held that, it's magic.
From contemporary dance to tango, hip-hop to flamenco, tap to Kathak, Sadler'S Wells produces, commissions and programmes them all.
We've seen a huge explosion of interest in dance, and in recent years. I mean, we've had a 50% increase in our audience in the last 6 years. There's something in the air, and luckily we also have a number of artists and companies who are making very exciting work at the moment. So when someone does come along, if they are interested, they also see very high quality work, exciting work, and it's sort of work which talks about where we are now as human beings, I think, quite a lot.
Sadler'S Wells is quite unique in terms of the whole world global dance scene, in that there aren't many dance houses across the world that solely programme dance practically 52 weeks a year. So we're quite uniquely placed to be able to kind of generate new and exciting large-scale work that can then be presented in London but also tour elsewhere around the world.
Critical to the work is a group of associate artists and companies, high-profile, internationally recognised names like the Ballet Boys, Matthew Bourne, Sylvie Guillem, Hofesh Schechter and hip-hop dance and culture pioneer John Z.D.
We work with them in various ways. We help to commission and produce their work, we present their work, but we also involve them in other activities around the theatre. They get involved in our education work, for example, and so they're sort of part of the fabric.
They're all quite prolific artists. They make productions maybe once every 18 months or so, some more regularly than that, but they'll come and talk to Alistair or myself about the artistic ideas. It may be just kind of a very simple, tiny idea and they're not sure what direction it will go in. So what we might do initially is suggest that could be a project that's supported through our Jerwood Studio programme. And what that does is enable artists to get together in a studio with no pressure of thinking they've got to perform at all, but it helps them maybe bring together collaborators they haven't worked with before, and it'll just give them time to play around with an idea, and then we'll look at it at the end of a 1 week or a 2 week period and talk with them and decide, you know, whether it feels like it's an idea that's strong enough and robust enough to develop into a large or a middle scale size piece, and then we might help support its development. I mean, with all the artists, we usually commission work, so we'll help put actual cash into supporting the development and creation of their work, and then we will also commit to presenting it on Sadler'S Wells stages.
This particular group of associate artists is that I think, even though artistically our work is quite diverse, I think we share a similar curiosity.
Michael Nunn of the Ballet Boys became an associate artist at Sadler'S Wells in 2005.
They support us in our ideas. We can go to them and say, look, we want to do this project, and hopefully they can help us out with space or financially and get it off the ground. And also to do a London season here, you know, it's a big West End theatre. It's like, unless you're at the Royal Opera House, there's no place better to dance. He's in line, up and we're off.
Michael Nunn and William Trevitt have been hailed as pioneers for making dance accessible and reaching a wider audience through their celebrated stage and television work.
Billy and Michael of the Ballet Boys, obviously we supported for a long time, but just saying that, I mean, they're obviously getting a little bit older now, and they're being realistic. They're coming to the end of their performing, career themselves. And so they've been very clever in being able to keep going with everything they built up in terms of the brand of the Ballet Boys, to transfer that to this new talent.
So, Andrew, am I right in thinking it's going to be curtain up on them? Great.
We wanted to be a little bit more creative with the production and the direction and look for new choreographers. And so rather than sort of ease ourselves out gently and bring in other dancers, we thought let's just do a completely new project. We're known obviously for men in dance, so we thought let's form a new company, a male company.
They met at the Royal Ballet School in the late 1980s and formed a lasting friendship that's taken them through a series of highly successful creative ventures.
It's been really good to actually sit out there now and observe the work more closely and to structure it and direct the evenings and direct your audience. It was always very difficult being on stage all the time. We'd always have to film it and then go out and have a look at it and then change it. And it was a long process. But now it's really hands-on. You know, I can stop my guys halfway through a show or a rehearsal and completely change it. And I love that sort of flexibility and freedom.
Don't look at him. There's nothing you can do about it once you've thrown him. So what's really weird is when you go, oh, because then you're off centre, yeah? So make sure you, as you throw him, you check where you are and get on that mark. Yep.
This latest strand to their creative bow showed during the sampled season and is called The Talent. Following an open audition in 2009, the new Ballet Boys company features 8 young male dancers aged 19 to 24, hand-picked at the start of their careers.
Once you hit a certain level as a dancer or a certain age, you know, you improve a little bit or you go down a little bit and it fluctuates. But with these young guys, I didn't think I'd see it so quickly, but within a year of working with them, they've completely changed. They seem far more mature. There's still a slightly raw edge to them because they have a different training basis. But there's still something there that really appeals to, I think, a younger audience. I mean, predominantly dance has a sort of middle-aged audience, I think. And in the last sort of 18 months, we've started to appeal to a lot younger people.
I'm born every day just to love you and think of you a little bit more. I cannot cry. Mama, she's with another guy. Mama, she's with another guy.
Throughout our 2 weeks, Shoes, Sadler'S Wells' latest commissioned production, was being rehearsed in the Lillian Baylis studio. It premiered at Sadler's in September 2010 and was being prepared with a new cast for its transfer to their commercial arm in the West End, the Peacock Theatre. Shoes is a song and dance comedy piece written by Richard Thomas, co-creator of Jerry Springer the Opera.
Well, like 2 years ago, I went to see Alistair Spalding with them, and he said, have you got any ideas for a dance piece? Because I wanted to do a big dance show. And I just said, well, how about a show called Shoes? And he bought it like in 15 minutes, and that was it.
Shoes was a way for us to really take control of a more commercial project. And it's a way of making that work more sophisticated and better choreographically in our view. So as well as sort of commissioning and producing on the art side, we also have entered into the world of where dance can be more commercial and can go to a wider audience.
The show features over 250 pairs of shoes, a cast of 12 dancers, 4 singers and a live band who together deliver a total of 25 different numbers. A team of choreographers including Kate Prince, Sidi Larbi Cherkawi, Alita Collins and Mark Smith worked under music theatre choreographer Stephen Mears' direction to create dance numbers that reflected their unique styles of performance.
It's fantastic to get the chance to work at Sadler's and to be asked to do a big production that they're totally backing and brand new music that's written for a show, and then to have it based around, you know, the dancers are the star of the show, and it's just fabulous. Sadler's, and you know, having the studios, the stage, I mean they supply so much and it's brilliant. You know, the standard of people we get is really high because of that.
Running alongside the rehearsals and build-up for the Shoes premiere was a programme called Sampled, a long-running annual series that presents snippets of work over 2 days by different artists and companies. It's a taster menu that introduces audiences to an assortment of dance styles across the building. This year it featured contemporary work by the Ballet Boys project The Talent, and Sidi Labi Chekawi with Fawn, plus a sneak peek at Zoo Nation's brand new work, Some Like It Hip Hop.
I think Sampled's great because I think it originally started, I might be wrong, in New York as a thing there called Fall for Dance, which we've performed in before. And basically is they collect like the best stuff from their season they're going to perform. They get small chunks of it and they put it on stage for an audience that might not usually come to see dance. You know, and the tickets I think are a tenner, and they take the seats out at the front of the theatre, as you can see here, so you can cram them in. And people can just have a little, sample of everything that the Wells has got to offer this season.
As we developed it, we realised it actually shows basically how all different styles of dance have something very, very strong in common, particularly the virtuosity of it. So if a ballerina is spinning or a hip-hop dancer is spinning on his head, then there's a very similar sort of aesthetic there. They're both trying to kind of show off in a way.
Programming a group of different choreographers and acts together for these sampled evenings meant that Sadler'S Wells Director of Technical and Production, Emma Wilson, and her team had to deliver specific setups to suit each of the artists' requirements.
Younger companies like Zoo Nation are going to require more input from us in terms of assisting them with lighting designs and so on and so forth. So the chief technician, for example, did the lighting design for them, watched some rehearsals, and then took care of them in a much closer way than we might do with the Ballet Boys, who are much more established and come in with a set piece that's pre-rehearsed and pre-designed. So it's about trying to fit all these different companies together that come with a variety of different skills and different. They've been running for a different length of times, and so it's just a bit of a jigsaw puzzle.
Founded in 2002 by director and choreographer Kate Prince, Zoo Nation's work includes the award-winning West End show Into the Hoods.
We're doing an extract at Sampled, which is really difficult to put together from, I think we're the only people performing who are doing an extract from a show that hasn't been performed anywhere and isn't completed. So we're just trying to look at the part of the story where we see the women being women, these two, Jojo and Kerry are their names, and we see them being women in a world that's ruled by men. And then we see them trying to fake it as men within that world. And then we've done a scene from the end of the show where there's a battle between two groups. And it's staged in a sort of hip-hop battle way, but fundamentally it's about a battle of the intellects.
Some Like It Hip Hop marks Zoo Nation's first performance at the theatre since becoming a Sadler'S Wells resident company. The production was in its second phase of research and development. It had spent nearly 4 weeks writing original music. The show will go into full production rehearsals in the summer and open at Sadler'S Wells in November 2011.
Some Like It Hip Hop has got loads of influences, but what we're trying to do is create a piece of work that is about gender. And Some Like It Hot I like because of the story of the two men becoming women. But what we're doing is a story of two women who become men and try and make it in a man's world. It's a comedy, but it's about the fact that we're just as smart as men. And it's all about really the fact that in hip-hop you've got such misogynistic lyrics. And as someone who works in the world of hip-hop and loves hip-hop, but also hates it, and I hate the homophobia, and there's things about hip-hop that I really hate, and I feel really conflicted in my relationship with hip-hop music. And I'm trying to just create a show with the company that is about the positive aspects of hip-hop and about community and family and freedom.
With only 2 weeks remaining until the transfer of Shoes to the West End, the new group of dancers was put through its paces by rehearsal director Nikki Wollaston in the Lillian Baylis studio.
1, 2, 3. So that turn, you need to do upstage, Holly. So you know that one that you just did at that angle? Yeah. Continue it to here, darling. And then in a minute, you're going to be able to drop down into that place. Because if I move Lexi further down, so the bed's falling off the step. That's it, yeah. It's a slightly different space. Let's try getting into that, because then you can be a 5 like that then.
This is quite a nice show for me. It's quite fluffy and fabulous, and just exploring joy, really, if I'm getting pretentious about it. So the emotional thrust of the show is about, you know, joy, finding it, losing it, refinding it, re-losing it, you know.
Let's go. She ain't going nowhere. Let's get out of here. She ain't going nowhere. Find something cheaper that looks just as good. Find something cheaper that looks just as good.
At the Peacock, it tends to go to a much broader audience and much more diverse audience. And all the work there, it is dance, but sometimes it's also just about physical, visual theatre that has a strong emotional content to it, or a musical or rhythmic content to it. So Shoes is quite unusual in a sense because there's quite a lot of humour in it. It's Richard Thomas, of course, and you don't often think of humour when you think of dance. So it's been quite a revelation for us and for some of our audiences, actually, to see Sadler'S Wells producing a production that you can have fun at, and it's quite an entertaining evening out, which is exactly what it should be.
Level 1, dressing room. A number of the performances during the sampled season were still being rehearsed before going on tour or being premiered later in the year. One piece that was returning was the critically acclaimed dance piece Fawn by Belgian choreographer and associate artist Sidi Larbi Chakawi. The piece examines the animalistic nature of human movement and the power of mythology in Fawn. This brand new duet, created for two of his company dancers, James O'Hara and Daisy Phillips, took an alternative look at the eponymous creature from Stéphane Mallarmé's poem, Claude Debussy's music, and Václav Nijinsky's choreography. It was originally performed during Sadler's Wells 2009 in the spirit of Diaghilev's special event.
That year was the centenary of the Ballet Russe, so what Alistair decided is rather than just simply recreate and present on our stages some of the original Ballet Russe ballets, what would be much more interesting to say is what if Diaghilev existed today, who would he be choosing to collaborate with? Because he was such an amazing impresario that brought together choreographers and visual artists and poets. So what Alistair did is invited 4 contemporary choreographers who are associates and say to them, look, make work that's inspired by the spirit of collaboration and everything that the Ballet Russe represented. So we had 4 choreographers, Javier de Frutas, Russell Malifant, Sidi Larbi Chakawi and Wayne McGregor, and they each went off with those briefs and came up with 4 very different pieces.
On the night of the Shoes premiere, the cast and crew made the short journey from Sadler's over to the Peacock Theatre. The venue in Holborn is shared with the London School of Economics, who use the space for lectures and public talks. Any get-in for the Sadler's Wells production team has to wait until the venue is released. For Shoes, that meant that the technical lighting crew had to work overnight and only had access to complete their work at 5 p.m. on the evening of the performance.
We produced this show last summer at Sadler's Wells, last summer-autumn at Sadler's Wells. We've moved it down to the Peacock, so we've spent over a week building it. The LSE own this building, so we only get access in the evenings, which means that the crew have been working until the middle of the night, 3 or 4 a.m. every morning, to get the show in, because we've lost most of the daytime of work, so it's been a shift of work really for them. And then we did the dress rehearsal last night and we're ready to open tonight.
For Shoes director Stephen Mear, the transfer meant a number of important changes needed to be taken into consideration.
The proscenium is a lot lower, the stage is smaller, but I actually think it fits better in here. I think it's far more comfortable and it's more friendly. It's more intimate. You feel you're part of it more.
Well, tonight's our opening night, so obviously it's the first time the cast are on stage, so we're doing all the last minute adjustments to their shoes, putting brackets on to make sure they're secure, getting the heels redone, taps re-put on again, everything glued down to make sure nothing's going to go wrong on stage. All the costumes are getting glitzed up for the show, we're getting sparkle put on, all the things that make the show a great show, from the dress rehearsals right the way through to being on stage.
They definitely need an audience. I mean, they only had 4 weeks rehearsal, whereas the other group had 10 weeks. So to get them in front of an audience and see their energy levels go up another notch and see the numbers get bigger, you know. So we know we've still got a way to go, but they will get there. They're all fabulous. I mean, they work so hard.
As the 7:30 curtain up neared, the team of costume designers, makeup and production is putting final touches and revisions to the running order.
So, we've changed an exit after Stiletto. You do as you do, but you will also have Lorraine and Daniel. But just try and follow them off, and then what I'll do is I'll get them to hold back and let you run round. Okay?
Yes.
Fabulous. Have a good show, ladies. Thank you.
Sadler's Wells' Creative Learning Department, Connect, has long expressed the simple ethos of Lillian Bayliss, one of the most visionary directors of Sadler's Wells, to make the arts accessible to everyone.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
The Company of Elders, part of Connect, is a dance and performance group for people aged 60 and over, which proves it's never too late to start dancing.
I'm not a dancer. Jeff's danced all his life. I first came to Sadler's Wells when I was 7 years old with my mother, saw Margot Fonteyn and wanted to be a ballet dancer. But the war intervened and I was evacuated to Wales, and that was the end of dancing. And I became a doctor, in fact. I was very busy and only began dancing when I was retired. And it's very good fun, isn't it, Jeff?
Isn't it wonderful that Sadler's Wells brought you back to dancing again from your early introduction where you saw Margot Fonteyn?
Yes, after more than 70 years.
And now you're doing similar movements to what Margot did, perhaps not quite so extensively.
Not quite so well.
I think the thing that's really interesting about the Company of Elders is the value placed on them and the level, the artistic level of the work. And they've had amazing opportunities to create work. At the moment they're creating work with somebody from New Adventures. They're about to start a residency with Hofesh Schechter to perform in our main stage project. And they've worked with really renowned international choreographers.
During our time, they were rehearsing with Steve Kirkham from Matthew Bourne's New Adventures Company for a performance of a section from Bourne's Cinderella as part of the Connect Festival. It's an annual 2-week event involving approximately 2,000 local people.
It's a real challenge each week to just kind of keep extending it and keeping it going and keep pushing them. You know, there was a few sighs behind me today. I think they were quite exhausted by the end of today's session, but I wanted to keep going for the last 10 minutes and not finish early. I really hope they're enjoying it. I hope it's something different from what they've done before. I look forward to seeing them on that night, see them doing other people's work as well. I know they're doing the choreographers, so it'd be great to see what they've done with other people.
Yes, he's introduced a number of dances today, different dance sequences that we have to master, which is very challenging and very interesting as well. It keeps us fully occupied and looking forward to the performance time, because this is what it's about. We're going to perform, and you've got to reach a certain standard that's acceptable and presentable to a paying audience.
And now phrase 2 is going to move around in a much smaller world. So it becomes a much smaller picture to look at. Does that make sense?
A lot of them are dealing with a lot of physical problems, so any kind of floor work is kind of out to the window. So because it's quite difficult for them to do that. Lifting, any kind of lifts are not really things that we can kind of develop too much. So it's just finding the right kind of flavour for how they work, and I think it works both ways. It's a challenge for me and it's a challenge for them to adapt to my kind of style, and it took a few sessions before we kind of get into sync with each other as well. But I think today's session we got a lot of work done today.
Whilst the Company of Elders was put through its paces upstairs, the Sadler's Wells main stage area welcomed the very best of Spain's flamenco talent for rehearsals of its 2-week flamenco festival. Featuring the voices of Spanish superstars Estrella Morente and Miguel Poveda, as well as performances by some of the world's most famous Spanish flamenco dancers, including Aida Gomez as Carmen, this annual season was a unique opportunity to sample authentic Spanish flamenco in the UK.
The good thing about us, we have such a diverse audience. They don't all come to everything. So we'll have our flamenco audience who come to their flamenco and tango audiences come to tango. But occasionally we can get the audiences to cross over. But I think what is quite unique about Sadler's Wells is that we're able to create the high art work for the very serious contemporary dance attenders who like the Russell Malafants, the Sylvie Guillems, the Ballet Boys. But we can also say that actually dance is an art form that is for a much wider audience as well. And actually, it's, you know, I think sometimes people, when they think of contemporary dance, you know, are slightly feel alienated or fearful that it might not be for them, that it's weird, it's very abstract, there's no narrative. But at the same time, dance is such a broad art form. Actually, there can be something for everybody within what we do here. And shoes is a very good example for that.
Whilst the Shoes audience made for their seats, the new cast readied itself backstage for a debut performance which would launch them into an 8-week run, a healthy period of time for the company's performers and technical teams to hone and to perfect the show.
As a performer, it's brilliant, and the fact that on top of that, then another level is you get to act it as well, and that is my passion. As a performer, I have to dance, you know, from here and get to act things, and it's so great to get to do that. It's not often you get that.
When you're rehearsing it so much, you kind of forget how funny it is, and it was great to hear people really laughing at things, and actually having watching the progression of certain little scenes kind of make people chuckle a little bit more. Then you kind of realize how brilliant Richard Thomas is, and how great the music and the synthesis of the whole idea works.
So I think it's just getting used to getting it into their bodies properly now. Now we've got an audience, because they've gone up another notch, and I think some of them tonight it was a shock to the system. Although they were all fantastic, it was a shock to the system. And you know, it's where you can preserve energy, where you can let rip. At the end, the last number's like 6 minutes, so they need every ounce they've got for that last number. So they've got to work a way to do it, which they will do the more we do it now.
It's good to know that they want to do it again and send it on its way, and hopefully there'll be some international touring and stuff if it all goes well. And also I quite like I revisit. I'm a great tinkerer. I can't stop rewriting, so if they mount it again, it's quite nice to go and, you know, we cut a few numbers out this time and put a new number into that too for the West End, and I'd imagine if they bring it back again, we'd revisit, because I mean, why not? If there's a way of improving it, I always think, you know, improve it.
To find out more about Sadler's Wells, go to sky.com/arts.